From the impact of war to the many layers of morality, video games don't shy away from exploring some of life's most intense and difficult themes. So today we're going to explore some of these themes and how video games have successfully explored these complex, emotional, and at times disturbing topics. Up first is the horrors of war. Video games have the unique ability of immersing the player in a reality that they may have never experienced. One example of this is the way that video games can depict some of the horrors of war. The game I'd like to highlight that explores this experience is This War of Mine. Unlike games like Call of Duty that focus on the action and, for lack of a better term, gamifying the themes of war and conflict, This War of Mine immerses players in realistic scenarios of civilians trying to survive a conflict that has absorbed their city. Players manage a group of survivors facing injury, starvation, and psychological trauma. Carefully manage inventory items to ensure that you can make it to the next day, risk scavenging and entering dangerous areas to try to ensure your survival, and even face nearly impossible moral choices involving other survivors where you have to consider what you would do to survive. You'll play as average people whose lives have been entirely transformed by matters largely out of their control, and that desperation, fear, and hopelessness very much comes through in this game. This War of Mine explores hope, resilience, and despair in a way that few games have, and it powerfully depicts the impact that war has on the lives of non-combatants. The next theme that I'd like to talk about is trauma and mental health. Because video games have the ability to put the player in the experience of another individual, not just visually, but audibly and even symbolically, they have the unique ability of exposing players to mental health experiences that they might not otherwise have any exposure to. Video games can be wildly immersive, and their depiction of characters' mental health conditions is one way that this immersion can honestly be taken to the next level. This can help players empathize with the way others experience the world and even reflect on their own experience. Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice is a powerful example of this. A core and crucial part of Senua's journey is her experience of trauma and psychosis. Senua experiences constant voices and visions, which the player also experiences, and which represent her experience of psychosis.
I know what she's thinking. I hear her thoughts. It's not too late to get into the boat and go back.
Because the player can hear these voices, they are given an understanding of how intrusive this can be. Senua also experiences flashbacks, anxiety, and a distorted reality that can even leave the player questioning what is real. In a sense, asking some of the same questions that Senua might be asking. As we join Senua on her journey, we learn what she has experienced and we can empathize with her. And when Senua comes to understand and accept her quote-unquote curse, we are with her every step of the way, and we're able to see her fight for self-acceptance. Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice is an immersive experience that depicts mental health struggles without stigmatizing them, or presenting them in a way that's simply for drama and for reaction. Instead, it's a thoughtful journey, and you can't help but care deeply for Senua. Next, let's talk about the cycle of violence. Violence in video games has been a topic of conversation for a long time, and certainly, one could argue that many games do present violence in a completely consequence-free way, where one makes it through a level and receives a score for how well or how quickly they took out their enemies. There's no moral heaviness. It's a game, after all. But not all games take that approach. As we've established, video games are capable of immersing players in an experience that isn't their own. And another example of that is their depiction of the cycle of violence. In games like The Last of Us, violence isn't rewarded. Violence carries weight. Through gameplay, attacks aren't quick one-shot kills. They're drawn out, they're gory, and they're often up close and personal. Enemies will call out each other's names, and if an enemy has an animal companion, that animal will react to their death. You're reminded every step of the way what you've done, that you've taken a life. And of course, the overall narrative of the Last of Us series revolves around the concept of the cycle of violence. Our protagonists experience violent trauma, which fuels their quest for revenge and can ultimately consume them. The sense of justice in the world, or at least in the eyes of Joel, Ellie, and Abby, is twisted into ever-consuming retribution and revenge. What becomes painfully true is that this violence only leaves everyone broken. And when we see Ellie and Abby at the end of The Last of Us 2, they are shells of who they once were. Their actions weigh on them, as does their never-ending quest for something that forever eludes them: peace. Ellie finally chooses a new path, but only at her own personal cost to end her mission for closure. As a player, we can't help but yell at our TV sometimes, begging these characters to make different choices and to see the good that they have in their lives that can help them heal. But we also understand, from what the game has shown us, that it's not that simple for any of these characters, and it makes you wonder what you do in their shoes. This approach makes violence thought-provoking and challenging, rather than simply a gameplay mechanic. Next, let's talk about morality. I think it's safe to say that we've all faced decisions that were less than straightforward. Whether it was a situation where there was no easy quote-unquote right choice, or having to make the choice to prioritize one person over another, we've all navigated our fair share of ambiguity and nuance in decision-making. Video games can create ethical dilemmas and choices for us that challenge us to face that ambiguity and nuance and explore complicated themes. In Papers, Please, working as a checkpoint inspector in a fictionalized dystopian country, navigating political tensions, you'll be tasked frequently with weighing self-interest versus altruism. Follow the rules and make money for your family, or risk helping others at the potential of losing your job. You work for an oppressive system, there's no question about it, and you'll find that it forces you into many morally compromising situations. There are often no easy answers, and this game will have you reflecting on your choices and your own perspectives on justice and survival. In Red Dead Redemption 2, you play as Arthur Morgan, an outlaw who is rapidly confronting the beliefs and ethics that he has built his life around. Arthur comes to question nearly everything that has been his norm, and as a player, you have control over how he navigates certain situations. Will you help others and open yourself up to them, or will you shut them off and become even more emotionally reserved? Red Dead Redemption 2 deals in moral ambiguity and gray areas, and it will leave you empathizing with Arthur and the complicated circumstances that he faces. While we may not find ourselves in some of the more intense moral situations that are presented in video games, when they are presented well and made nuanced, it can lead us to challenge ourselves and reflect on our own morality. Games that make us think and reflect encourage us to grow, rather than remain stagnant. Next, let's talk about the theme of existentialism. The concept of existentialism suggests that life doesn't have a built-in meaning, and rather it's each person's ability to make their own meaning through their life choices and actions. It's kind of a daunting concept when you think about it, and I know I can speak from experience. I've faced a lot of anxiety and challenge in creating a meaning in my own life. While games like The Outer Wilds encourage players to find a meaning in a strange, open-ended world, giving the player the power to create the meaning, others explore the search for meaning. And one such example of that is Firewatch. In Firewatch, you play as Henry, a man who has taken a summer fire lookout job in order to escape challenging choices and situations in his life. He meets someone who's done basically the same as him. They're both running from their troubles and trying to use this temporary stop as an escape from having to decide where to go next. It's honestly painfully relatable, a reminder that you can't escape from your own problems, and that facing the discomfort of making a decision about the next step leads to growth and progress. Firewatch reminds us that as much as we may want to just escape into fantasy and temporary distractions, the best path forward is to accept our more ordinary lives and grow in the ways that we can, no matter how small. Finally, let's talk about grief and loss. Grief and loss are themes that are painfully familiar to us all. We've been touched by the pain of loss, and I think we all know how hard it can be to process it. Video games can provide a safe space for us to process death and loss, and for those things to be normalized. A lot of the time, death and loss are considered a bit taboo. People don't want to talk about them, but they're a part of life, and games like Spiritfarer and To the Moon act as forms of art that can help us explore these experiences and find meaning in the pain. Because loss can be so isolating, having games that we can take part in our own space and our own time reduces some of the isolation of the experience and can bring comfort to us. Spiritfarer presents death as a very normal and natural part of life. Your role is to guide spirits to the afterlife, engaging with them on their final journey and doing what you can to help them achieve their final wishes. There are complicated moments, but the game never depicts death as being a problem, rather something to be navigated and accepted. It also encourages the player to focus on the unique memories and the legacy that is left behind by each individual, rather than the pain of the loss. To the Moon similarly explores the themes of loss and grief, with an emphasis on learning others' stories and on the unresolved emotions that often remain following a loss. Through its exploration of these complicated topics, players connect deeply with the story. It's very relatable. The loss, the regret, and of course, the love. To the Moon reminds us that the loss of a loved one doesn't mean that we have to let it go. It endures in different ways, and it can help us find healthy ways to deal with our own grief. Sometimes, seeing something play out on a screen can make it easier for us to navigate. It can serve as a model for how we deal with difficult moments in our lives, and the way that games like Spiritfarer and To the Moon explore grief and loss is one such example of that. One of the unique powers of video games is their ability to challenge our views and immerse us in an experience we may have never had. Video games are clearly a platform that can push boundaries, challenge norms, and provoke meaningful and deep conversations. And these themes and games are examples of that. Even when it can be hard to digest, these games keep us thinking, growing, and learning. What are your thoughts? What themes in games have you seen that have been intense, but also that you appreciated the way that they were explored? Let's talk about it in the comments. If you like more content like this, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.